So this is the summary that I talked about at the beginning of the video for those of you who probably skipped ahead of the video who didn't want to go through multiple hours. Totally understand. This is going to give you those highlights that we have had throughout this discussion. Okay. So this text shows that Leader 1 not only is aware of the video, but stands behind the video in which Leader 2 is speaking. He is now liable, along with Leader 2, to defend the theology. So remember that I presented this video to them that they made, and Leader 1 says, I do agree with him on that. This text shows that Leader 2 has agreed to the terms to allow Darren into the discussion. This means that there is no setup and that both parties were willing to allow Darren to participate. So look, I say, I would like to invite my reduced rabbi. He's the source where I get my theology. Would you guys be opposed to having him come? Leader 2 says, sure, that would be fine. This shows that Leader 2 left the conversation after 13 messages occurred. Leader 2 never defends his theology or hears what Darren and I's issue is over his theology. This destroys Leader 2's credibility as a professional scholar. This shows that Leader 2 is willing to insult people who push back against his theology. This shows that Leader 2 is a bully. It also shows utter disdain for women by using womanhood as an insult. So check this out. He said, bro, this effeminate energy has to stop. I have a wife, 4 kids, a job, and other duties. It is not the end of the world, and Mr. Katz doesn't fix my eschatology or I his. So now remember, effeminate is a derogatory term. As the description is, with reference to a man, having characteristics and ways of behaving traditionally associated with women, and is regarded as inappropriate for a man. So he called me a woman because I seem to have energy that consists of the characteristics of a woman. This shows that Leader 2 refused to come back to the conversation and defend his theology. So he gave me a thumbs up when I said that I'm going to expose his deplorable behavior if he does come back. I say, is that a no? And he says, if you think this is what Christ will compel you to do what you need to do. This shows, right from the beginning, Leader 1's arrogant disposition against Darren. So right from the beginning, Leader 1 says, I do not appreciate the ridiculous tone you have taken from the very beginning with us being wrong. Now note that Darren has just accused Leader 1 and Leader 2 of having problematic theology. That is not that is not an inappropriate position to have within discussion. That is a perfectly appropriate position to have in discussion to think somebody is wrong. Of course, as long as we provide the evidence, which we believe that we've provided the evidence to show that the theology that Focus Press has purported is completely wrong. This shows Leader 1's insecurity and unprofessionalism in handling complex and long theological debate. There was no mention of a limit of messages by either party. So look at what he says. He says, when you have these conversations, people couldn't possibly bow out due to the 200 plus messages received in a 2-hour stretch. So Leader 1 has an issue with the amount of messages sent. This shows that Darren is willing to acknowledge when Leader 1 is on point, which should nullify the attack dog status later assigned by Leader 1. So look at what Darren says. He says, now when I have a reason to commend, I always do so. Therefore, Leader 1, this is very good. There are many different interpretations, but the way we read it is that the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem was God's judgment on Israel for rejecting Jesus. Why this is good is because it implies that there is for you a subjective opinion. But the way we read it is what I'm commending. This shows that Darren was willing to move the conversation to a debate on camera. This is an attempt to help Leader 1 because he is overwhelmed, quote, overwhelmed by the amount of messages. So look here, he says, I want to put on the table an offer of a debate on camera, just like the videos I see yourself and Leader 2 put out. Note, I am equally comfortable in both spaces, writing and speaking in real time. This shows that Leader 1 refused the offer to have this conversation over a video call that could have lessened his overwhelmed status of having to dispense with many messages. He says, I'm fine to continue here. So there's no excuse for Leader 1. He thinks that he has an out by saying he's been so overwhelmed by so many messages, but there's no excuse for it. He had the opportunity to come into a video chat where there would have been a plenty of time where he didn't have to read a million messages, right? This shows that Leader 1 contradicts himself by saying he never asked for the evidence of Darren's heritage. Darren quotes the question Leader 1 asked. Later on, Leader 1 will deflect by saying it was a passing comment instead of a question. So notice that he says, no, I didn't, saying he didn't ask a question. I claimed it was untraceable. I appreciate all your information on it. And then what does Darren quote? He quotes him. He said, what I'd love to know right off the bat is, how do you know you're a descendant of Aaron's from the tribe of Levi, when all the records of who belonged to who was destroyed at AD 70? So clearly, he asked a question. Yeah, as he said, right off the top, like this was prime importance to Leader 1. So he contradicts himself here. This shows the context of Jesus using the whips in the temple. It also shows that Jesus loved the temple by cleansing it. So it says that, so Darren says, in fact, Annas was known to literally whip average Levites who did not work with his corruption. So why do you think Matthew notes Jesus used whips to drive the money changers out? It is a remez. It is a hint. Matthew is showing to stand for the corrupt priest, Annas, of course. This shows Leader 1 backs out of the conversation and refuses to answer the questions posed by Darren. He says, I'm done with this chat. I come out with 150 messages. You have no interest in an honest discussion. Leader 1 is now engaging in gossip by speaking to me behind Darren's back. Leader 1 is becoming unhinged as the phrase, that's crap and you know it, does not sound calm in plain English. So look at this. He says, come on, man, that's crap and you know it. Offended some, but I don't have infinite amounts of time. Well, here's the thing, Leader 1. I don't have infinite amounts of time either. I have a wife. Actually, after this, I think I'm planning on taking my wife to go somewhere. I don't know where we're going to go, but we're going to go somewhere. I should be taking her out right now. But, because I don't have infinite amounts of time. The difference between me and you, Leader 1, is that I do think I have to take the time to defend my theology and to present a case as to why I think your behavior has been so deplorable. Leader 1 has now condemned me as insincere in my search for truth, and that my heart is unkind. So he said, I'll pray for your heart to change back, because this isn't the kind Caleb I knew. There's no genuineness in your search. I'll pray that you start genuinely seeking again. Now notice he says, this isn't the kind Caleb I knew. So he's implying that I'm now a mean, cold-hearted person. Leader 1 has accused me of concocting a setup in an ambush. Real fast, so you don't deny this was a setup. You don't deny that you've been talking with him for a year and had no sincerity in your search. You don't deny you were trying to ambush us. He also didn't answer my question on if you've ever seen someone debate like this. I explained that I can't be concocting a setup since both parties agreed to allow Darren into the conversation. So I said, as you can see, I asked if we can include Darren in the conversation, and Leader 2 said yes. No sign of any setup here. Leader 1 shows arrogance for believing they don't have to be held accountable. So look at this. My leaving had nothing to do with my inability to be held accountable or to answer questions. It is my lack of desire to engage with someone who has no desire to hear my side of things. I don't have time nor desire to sift through 150 comments for every comment I make. I really don't care what you think about us, our views, the video, or anything else. You certainly are not going to convince me of anything concerning Judaism. We have nothing to be accountable for. Let me say that again. We have nothing to be held accountable for. Leader 1 behaves unprofessionally and accuses me of condescending behavior. Ironically, this behavior is what is actually condescending. He says, once again, cut the condescending crap. I gave you one long answer for 8 questions. You can do the same. I don't need my phone spammed for the next hour. So I pointed out, is this really how a professional scholar would talk? Okay. And here's the funny thing. I didn't mention this earlier, but I was nice enough to dump it all into one text for him. Says he was so overwhelmed. Leader 1 leaves the conversation because he doesn't want to be schooled by Darren and I. And he says, next time you decide to come after somebody, don't just assume they know nothing about which they are talking about. I gave you plenty of answers to the video, to your questions, and to your rebuttal. I'm not returning to talk because this was intended to be between us and you, and I entertain it because certainly Darren didn't accept your invitation to discuss, so I can be schooled by Darren. I'm done with this discussion. Have a good day. And that is where we're going to leave it, folks. So I just want to say thank you so much. If you stuck around this whole video, thank you so much. Please consider to give a like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you.